Welcome to finishing your fiscal year and 2025 strong. Appreciate you joining the webinar today. My name is Kari Anderson, Principal with Incite Consulting. As we approach the end of this fiscal year, and hopefully you're looking forward to a strong finish and to the start of 2026, in my estimation, from all of my years in the field, it is time to pause, refocus, and finish this year strong. So today's webinar will guide you through practical strategies to maximize your current impact, build momentum not only towards the end of December, but into 2026, and set your nonprofit up for sustainable success in this next fiscal year. So what can you expect today? First, I want you to set an intention. It's meant to be both practical and reflective. Your intentions could be personal. Your intentions could be professional. Ideally, it's not more than 3 intentions for this month. We've got a lot to do still, and I want to make sure you're successful. Secondly, today's a practical session. I'm going to be covering actionable strategies and tactical tips that you can implement right away. So this afternoon, tomorrow, this week, next week, right, all the way through the end of December. And today is also meant to be a reflective session because we're going to take some time to pause, assess, and ideally reset your mindset and approach for the year-end push because we've got a lot to do in the remaining 29 days of this month. So if you haven't met me before, hi, I'm Kari Anderson. It's true, nonprofit nerd, board border collie, untangler of knots. I've had the good fortune of serving in the sector for 35 years, if you're going to do the math. I started as a nonprofit executive director in Tacoma, Washington, and had the good fortune of leading 7 organizations in Washington State and in Colorado. For the last 11 years, I have had a coaching consulting practice that works primarily with nonprofits in the West, though I have worked all over the country. And I do seem to specialize in untangling knots and helping to clean up messes. Usually those have to do with we as people and habits or practices that maybe are not serving ourselves as effectively as they should be in the sector. And I try to do this having a little bit of fun. We do some of the best work in the world in this sector. I don't know of a community that doesn't benefit from having one or many of us providing goods and services and fulfilling missions. And I believe pretty passionately in making sure that boards and staff have the right tools to do your most effective work in the most practical way possible. My consulting firm specifically works on the back end of things, right? I don't raise the money for you. I am not out recruiting board directors. I'm not implementing programs. I'm working on the back end of things to make sure that people know what their role is and why, and that you've got the practices, structure, systems, and tools that allow you to do your best work. So here we are, right? Today is December 2nd of 2025. And for many of us, right, we're coming off of the days. What do I call the days? Well, we've got Thanksgiving Day, we've got Black Friday, we've got Small Business Saturday. I don't know what Sunday was. It was a football day for sure, right? And then we've got Cyber Monday and today's Giving Tuesday. So we've got this crush of activity that starts to happen. And for many of us, if not most of us, the calendar year end also coincides with our fiscal year end. So we've got high pressure, even if we are on track to hit our performance objectives. We've still got high pressure in order to be able to finish this year strong. And if we're not quite where we need to be, and boy, 2025 has been a doozy for many of us in terms of government grants that have been ceased or paused. Maybe there's been a dip in donor dollars for your organization because of economic uncertainty. So we've got some fiscal pressures that may be there, and we're tired. Most of us are tired, especially if you just had to host Thanksgiving, right? We're tired. So we also come into this last month oftentimes with competing priorities, not just the ones that are in our own heads, but the ones that perhaps your boss or the executive director or the board have placed upon you. So this is why it's so critical right now for you to pause and assess and make some really clear choices as to how you're going to spend your time and with whom you're going to spend your time as we move throughout the rest of the year. So typically, right, these are words that often run around in my head and ran around on my paper when I was working in the field. The need to evaluate, the need to review, the need to analyze. What sort of progress are we actually making against our goals? What should I be prioritizing? Because I only have, for all intents and purposes, 20 working days until the end of this year. Um, how can I possibly be reflective if I'm on this hamster wheel? Wait a minute, I need to pause to get some coffee with my team. Like there's lots of competing interests, but we're going to talk about all of these today and give you some specific tools to be able to finish the year strong. So I would first encourage you to think about what metrics matter to your organization right now. And if you honestly don't have a clue, these are my favorite three, right? And it doesn't matter to me what sort of mission your organization is in business to be able to produce. It doesn't matter to me where you are in the country. It doesn't matter to me the size of your budget, right? Or who's on your board. These are the big three. So I would start with performance or fundraising performance. Um, I had a board treasurer for an organization I worked with once who had a mantra that I absolutely love, and that is no money, no mission. Right? We fundraise to make sure that we've got money to be able to impact our mission. And so, in particular, this year, I want you to be thinking about where are we in fundraising progress and where are our gaps. And it's really easy for us to just dip our head into a hole and pretend like we're an ostrich and ignore, especially if the numbers maybe aren't looking so great. But we've got to make sure that we actually have cash to be able to deliver on the mission that your organization is in existence for. So take some time, ideally tomorrow, and map out, well, what are our revenue streams? And where are we against our goals this year? Are we under in terms of grants? Well, you may not be able to get that grant this year, but perhaps we've got some impact reports that are due. Have we sent out our year-end appeal? If not, please do, like tomorrow, right? If you don't, other people will be receiving money from those same donors. Do we have plans to continue to cultivate our major donors between now and the 31st of the month? If you just had a fundraising event in November, have we sent out all of the thank yous, right? Now, what can we impact right now? And what I would encourage you to do specifically is focus on one revenue stream, right? I know that they're all important, but right now, year-end giving is king. And so really focusing on annual giving to be able to wrap your year up strong might possibly be the best use of your time. If you are an entity that actually has a program that you're delivering, right? Whether that's meals to seniors, whether that is ensuring that there's a safe place for animals to stay, whether that is ensuring that there's an after school program for kids, that are in elementary school. We're so good in this sector of doing the program, right? Of doing the thing, but we are not so great about measuring the impact of the program and specifically doing evaluation work. So December is really a time to be able to start thinking about how are our programs actually impacting our mission and how effective are these programs to make sure that we're actually delivering the thing we say in our mission statement or in our purpose statement that we're doing. We're so good at doing, and this is where that pause comes in. Take the time to evaluate impact and effectiveness. And this might mean that a program doesn't continue. That's not your decision to make right now. Your decision right now is let's pull in this independent data, right? Data drives decision making. And the last metric that I would be wanting to really dig into, because again, without the board, we do not have a not for profit corporation. It's a time to assess the level of the involvement and support from your current board members to ensure that there's alignment and collaboration. I am a huge fan of term limits for boards, not because I believe in voting someone off the island. It's because that I've not yet met a person whose energy levels and zeal don't change over time on the board. And it's not for most that they don't care still about your organization or your mission. It's because they've done the work and they may now be interested in doing work elsewhere. And we absolutely should allow that door to swing widely open and encourage them to serve others, right? But if they serve on your board, they've got to be doing all the things. Oftentimes, the alignment and collaboration piece is because the board director is poorly placed. Maybe their neighbor told them that this was a great board to serve on. Maybe they felt pressure from their boss as to serve with this organization. We know the best board directors care deeply about cause or mission, and we can train them, right, as to how to be a great board director for your organization. But we can't train what makes the heart sing. And the end of year is always a great time to be sending the board self-evaluation, in case you have not done that yet, to really get a candid idea from each board director. Where do they feel like they are performing well as part of the board team? Where Do they feel like they're performing well as a board member or director? Where do they feel like there's a deficiency or an area for growth for both the board as a team and as individuals? And do they still have the time to be able to commit to the board work that happens outside the board meeting? And that is the board work that happens in committee. So those are your metrics, right? And for each of you, there's going to be something a little different that you'll choose, but those are the big three. If I were in your shoes, that I'd be focusing on in December. I also want you to do an operational health check, right? And again, this isn't, throwing stones at you and saying what you're doing wrong. It's what is your gut telling you, right? How are our systems? First, pro tip, let's identify what systems you actually are using, right? So those systems could be your CRM, it could be QuickBooks or another accounting software that you're using? Are there other platforms that you're using to help with project management or program work? Are they actually being utilized? Are they actually easy to use? Are they helping you be efficient and effective? And if not, why? Maybe in the new year, right? That's something for you to address or change. I would also, if you've got staff or volunteers, I would be evaluating how's our capacity? Are our people actually feeling like they're balanced in terms of energy? Are they totally tapped out and maxed? Do they have all of the resources they need, whether that's training, whether that's tools to use, paper tools, online tools, professional development? Do they have everything they need in order to be able to do this work? If not, why? And you may not be able to fix the lacking pieces right now, but that's certainly something to put on the list for 2026 in Q1 to be able to address. And again, your job as a leader for your organization, if your team is telling you either by verbal or by action that they cannot do anymore, help them focus on the most important thing in December based on their job to do. Don't give them 17 things. Don't give them 5 things, right? It's the one thing that they can do. We want them to be successful, but we also need everyone doing their best possible work. And I would also want to be checking really candidly as to what our burnout risks might look like. Most nonprofits run on people, right? People are the programs. One of my favorite sayings from the Idaho Nonprofit Center. And if you don't have people, whether that's staff, whether that's board, whether that's volunteers, to move this work forward, we're stuck, right? So, are there things that are kind of gumming up the wheel right now that are causing burnout or that have the capacity to cause burnout at your organization? Let's identify them. Let's stop them if at all possible, so that you can finish this year strong. So, those are the things that might be clunky right now, but I also want you to pause and think about, oh my heavens, what have we done well this year? We are so good in this sector about something I call the yeah, but. So someone will give you a compliment, someone will say, hey, this was really well done and why. And we automatically go back to, well, I could have done this better. Or I should have done that. Well, I would have done this if. And we actually do so much so well every year. And we don't document it. We don't write it down. We don't celebrate it. Now is the time for you to actually put that list together, right? We want you to be able to reflect on what's working. We always start with that strengths, right? So you're going to be doing a SWOT on your organization. What are we doing well? What are we strong at? Where have we had successes? Then you can go to the, hey, where are we weaker? For those of you that don't like that word, where's an opportunity for you to grow? Where are opportunities perhaps that we should take advantage of? Might be this month, probably next year. And are there threats? There's always threats, right? We're in the business of people. But the idea is we want to be able to identify the threats and get them out of our head. Most of the threats that we concern ourselves with really aren't ours to be concerned with at all, but it's important to name them and also name the things that are actually within our control and the things that are not in our control so we don't worry about them any longer, right? So if I were in your shoes, right, I'd be maybe working this afternoon or tomorrow on identifying the big three, right? I had mentioned fundraising, right? Program evaluation and board. Maybe yours are different. Then perhaps on Thursday or Friday, you could do a SWOT analysis for your organization to be able to wander into the week of the 8th of December with a new to-do list. So that week, right, I really want you to be looking at an organization scan. And I've got 4 categories that I really like people to be able to walk through when you're thinking about an organizational scan. This isn't a full-blown organizational assessment, it's a scan. And what I first want you to be thinking about, again, because we want to finish this fiscal year strong and because we need money to actually be able to, dive into mission. So, what's your financial stability look like? Do we have multiple revenue streams? Are we within our budgeted expense line items for the year? Are we worried about investment revenues if we have investments? Um, have we had to tap into reserves this year if you have a reserve account? Have all board directors made their gift this year? They should, right? Do we have outstanding pledges that because of some poor software management, we haven't collected on? So it's a chance for you to say, where are we tracking, where are we not, and why, and making some course corrections between now and the end of December. I'd also, again, wanting to be looking at your program effectiveness, right? What programs are delivering and why. No decisions right now as to if you're going to keep that program next year or not. It's just where are we actually seeing us hitting on our mission delivery via our programs. I'd mentioned the need to be able to really tap in with your team. Who needs what, right? So, really great leaders should know what makes each of your team members tick, whether that's staff that directly report to you or that's key volunteers that you depend on in order to be able to do your business. Some of these folks just might need a quick note. Others might need to be taken out for coffee. Being ever mindful, right, of what we can and what we can't do in the workplace. Someone might need a hug, right? Each of your people are different. And now is a really great time to be able to figure out, in order to get everyone's best work in December, how can you bolster each of them in the manner that works for them? Maybe someone just frankly needs a half day off. Maybe someone needs to be kicked out of the office early to go to their gym class that they've been skipping for the last month. Um, maybe someone really just needs some time with you, right? Over lunch or over coffee. And the last piece, though I would tell you it's the most important piece for December, what are we doing to take care of these donor relationships? And we are not doing the same thing for each donor because categories of donors need different things. I would be telling you, if I were in the field right now, that I would be spending the most amount of time in the cultivation of my major donors because about 75% of our time should be spent on the cultivation of our major donors, right? Making sure that they are informed and educated and inspired with the work we're doing. That will get them right to that big gift. And I'd be doing a little bit of cultivating and stewarding of my mid-sized donors, but those are the folks you need to be playing with this month, right? It's not about cold calls. In fact, it never should be about cold calls. It shouldn't be with spending bunches of time on our grassroots donors or first-time donors. This is where we need to be spending our time with the folks that have made it rain for our organizations in the past, and also the folks that have the capacity in that mid-range level in order to get you to your financial goals for this year. Yes, it's December 2nd, right? And perhaps you've been a little asleep at the wheel or have been busy doing other things. But when I'm thinking about the most important things for Q4, which is now condensed into this last month of the fiscal year, right? It's the following. I want you to be thinking about your top 3 to 5 fundraising priorities. For some of you, that might be wrapping up your year-end giving campaign. For others, that might be talking with those major donors, right? And identifying some strategies to close some major gifts. Maybe there's a grant report that's due. Maybe there's a corporate partner that is needing a proposal from you to make sure that you're funded for this year, right? So identify those top 3 to 5 things that have to be done for your fundraising this year. And based on those, allocating your team's time and resources accordingly. Your team can't be scattershot right now with regard to fundraising. They've got to be singularly focused on making sure that you hit and exceed these goals. If there's any process pieces that need to be adjusted, again, it's the consistency that matters so much for this in order to be able to hit your goals. And so your job as a leader is to make sure that we've got those processes lined out and that they fall like dominoes in order for this work to be completed in an effective way. This time of year is the time to engage again your most responsive donors. So I'd be looking at your Libent lists, not your Cybont lists. So Libent last year, but not this year, and taking a peek at those donors that haven't given yet this year, and also taking a look at donors in your top 20% of donors that haven't given yet, and making sure that you are communicating with them about the impact, the need, and how they can be a part of your solution this year. I would also be thinking about leveraging what I would call proven high return campaign tactics. And in particular, making sure that you've got messaging that is scheduled, teed up, ready to go for December 29th, December 30th, and December 31st. So there's stats out there that talk about 40% of nonprofits received 60% of their annual fund giving in November and December each year. And the follow-up stat to that is 10% of that giving comes the last 3 days of the calendar year. So what are we doing to make sure that you've got messaging ready to go? Even if you may be taking time off that time of year with family and friends, there's no reason that we can't have automation working in your favor to ensure that you've got messages in front of those donors that may not have given yet. And oftentimes it's when families are gathering to make philanthropic decisions as a whole. Why should your nonprofit not be one of those beneficiaries? And then your job, right, is to monitor progress. So when I'm thinking about monitoring progress, this means I'm having a weekly all call with all staff saying, where are we at against our particular priorities that we have determined as a team and what needs to be done the following week to ensure that we are meeting these benchmarks, right? So there's no way you can monitor this progress if we're actually not talking to each other about what we've done this week, what donations have come in, and who needs to be followed up with. So in order for great fundraising to work, we've got to have streamlined messaging. And now, right, we have, I swear, 17,000 different channels that we could be taking advantage of in terms of communicating with those that care about us. We've got to use all the channels, and there must be one message, right? This is not the time for scattershot. It's one message everywhere, right? So this might be the time that we actually need to create a little cheat list to say, what platforms are we actually using anyway, right? When was the last time you actually used X? Do we need a TikTok channel? Well, maybe not this year, but soon. Um, do we actually have radio? Is there a billboard? What does our website look like? Oh, wait, can you actually get onto the website? That's another thing, right? Making sure that we're actively using Instagram and Facebook. What are we doing with email? Do we have a newsletter? Have we done our year-end or our annual appeal or our impact report, right? So you got to have a list first of what all of your opportunities are, but then there needs to be a consistent message that goes out and goes out frequently. And I was just asked earlier this morning about, well, won't I be over communicating? People, I have got to assure you, right, as a community member, I'm not thinking about you as much as you think I'm thinking about you, right? And we get so many things, whether that's, on our phones or whether that's in the mail or whether that's on the news or whether that's in our inbox. And it's going to take you consistency across multitudes of channels for people to act. We are overstimulated. And it is your job as the development and communication professional to make sure that whenever someone just happens to be paying attention, that they're paying attention to you, right? This also goes to your team, right? So think back, right? I mentioned a couple minutes ago the importance of you all deciding what your 3 to 5 fundraising priorities are. There should be messaging about that, and everyone on your team should be in, unified lockstep when questioned by a donor or a board director or a community partner about what the most emergent priorities are for your organization. Everyone should be saying the same thing. So that might need some practice in your world too, right? Well, you can't be talking about this program if you guys have this deficit for general operating, right? So making sure that everyone is clear about when asked, where do you need help, that there's clarity. on your team about where that is and how people can engage with you in supporting that. So I'd mentioned a little earlier, right, about donor engagement choices and how you're going to be spending your time. So 75%, right, of major donors, it's not about the solicitation, it's about the cultivation. In order for us to eventually get to that solicitation, we've got to be with them. And so if you have determined that we really need to be spending time with our major donors, about 75% of your calendar time in December should be with those people, right? Maybe you've got more of a mix, right, of your mid-levels, but they need both, right? They need cultivation and they need stewardship, and your smalls are a little bit more of the other. Um, I encourage you to look at your data, right, to see, well, who is actually making up your annual giving? Who do you have more of? Do you have a huge volume of lower level donors that are the lion's share of that particular line item? Or is annual giving for you made up of your really big donors? Regardless, you'll choose to spend time differently based on that data. Don't use the same time with the same or with different donors, right? There's an expectation of a different time allotment. And while I'm asking you to doing some very specific things now, right? Tomorrow, next week, into the week of the 15th, yes, even into the week of Christmas. This is your time to move from what I would call reactive to proactive. So many of us are fortunate enough to have a week, maybe 2 weeks off at Christmas. If you don't, well, your donors do, right? They're off busy paying attention to other things. And there's a tendency for us to hop right back into the office on the 2nd of January, or maybe it's the 5th for you all this year. And we're already back on our heels, right? We feel like we're paying catch up from December. My encouragement is for you, before you leave the office for the Christmas holidays or for the Hanukkah holidays, that you are setting up your calendar to do the most important work with regard to donors. And so what that looks like right now is making sure that the year-end appeal is out. Ideally, it would have been out in November, but there's no time, again, like the present, to get this appeal out. I would want to make sure that you've already got set up in December all of your thank yous. There's no reason you have to wait to write those thank yous and get those automations set until, late December. Get them set up now so they can automate for you as those gifts come in. And then to ensure, again, before you tuck away for the Christmas holidays, that you've got automated setups ready to go for your thank yous and for impact, right? There's no reason that you can't do any of this now. If you're struggling with it, it's usually a time management issue, right? But most of us have CRMs, even the simplest ones that can handle the workflows for us. We just need to get the letters set up. And there's no reason you can't block time in the next week to get the templates ready to go. A couple other things I want you to think about in terms of finishing December strong. I know, because I just made it this morning, I have a list of 37 things that were just running around in my head about 2 o'clock last night. Finally managed to go back to sleep, wrote them all down this morning. And I performed this exact exercise while eating breakfast this morning. What absolutely cannot wait and what can wait, right? And my can't wait list is actually much smaller than the can wait list. I would encourage you to do the exact same thing, because what it actually helps us do, one, is focus on the things that have the most return, but it also gives you boundaries and time back. Super important, right? So when I'm thinking about things that can't wait, year-end appeal, making sure that your templates and automations are set up for next year, making sure that I have reached out to some key donors with regard to maybe a lapsed gift or year-end gift. What can wait? Oh, rearranging my office. I can't send thank yous until the first of the year for gifts that are coming in after December 15th. I can't do an overhaul on some of my training practices until the beginning of the new year, right? All of these are going to be different for you, but I can assure you that your can't wait list will be smaller than your can wait list, and that will allow you all the time to focus on the most important work. So I'd mentioned the importance of checking in with your team. My guess is that many of you, whether you have a small organization where it's just you, maybe another full-time staff person, or if you've got a larger organization, most of your folks are A players, right? They want to do the right thing. They hustle. They have, initiative. They're self-starters. And we're all at the tail end of the rope right now, right? Like the end of the year, we're all pretty gassed, and it's a really important piece for you as a leader to be able to acknowledge this. Everyone wants to do the best work, and just acknowledging that we may not have all the gas in the tank to be able to do all the things is a super important piece for you as a leader. The acknowledgement is half the battle, to say, hey, I see you. I get that we're all tired. This is why we're meeting, is to try to take some of that non-urgent work off our plates and focus on the most important work. If there are ways for you to give both tangible and intangible accolades or treats. Certainly important, in any sort of recognition for not only just showing up, but for being willing to do the hard work does not go, unnoticed by staff for sure. I want you to think about, both for yourself and for your team, the idea of resetting your energy thoughtfully. And it literally might be, for some, you sitting down and helping them with this list, right? Helping them, they may think that everything is important, or because some things in their performance objectives means they have to do it in a certain way, or because of implied expectations, maybe from you, that they feel like they have to stay for a certain amount of time, or that they have to do this particular thing in a certain manner. And your job is to meet them where they're at, making sure that if they're having challenges, that you're hearing the challenges and making sure that there's an opportunity to reflect or redirect in order to help them not only hit their deadlines and their goals, but to help the entire office overall. Um, what I would also say, as you're thinking about, well, how do I kind of reset our priorities for this month? How can I set us up for next year, right? The idea about starting before you're ready. So some of us that might be on this webinar today are perfectionists, guilty as charged. And sometimes we are our own worst enemy when it starts to the getting ready of to doing something. I was just on a call with a client earlier today, and they had been procrastinating around a couple of pretty important deadlines and a couple of important projects, because it's just the starting that is so difficult, and the work feels just unmanageable, overwhelming. They want to do it a certain way, but they're so tired, they're just not sure what the certain way is. And for any of us, especially if we've got something that is looming that is important for your end, your job is to start with what you know. Um, Make a list of things that maybe you need clarity on. Start the work already, right? Because what we absolutely know is once you start it, it is easier to continue it. The hardest piece is just jumping, over the hurdle. And I'm thinking in particular, a particular client needs to go and talk with a major donor about a gift, and she's absolutely petrified about doing it because she only has certain pieces. And I just shared with her, you've got to make the call and you have to go talk with this individual. And the conversation will help to spur the pieces that you need to learn, right? The idea behind all of this is, with anything you're trying to do, whether it's hitting a fundraising goal, evaluating a program, working with the board, balancing the budget, whatever that might be this year, it is better to have imperfect action than no action at all. So when you're thinking back to what you've set as priorities for December, it is better for you to start and it be good, right? Than not start it at all. And you get to the end of December and think, oh my heavens, we missed the mark on so many pieces, right? So when I'm thinking about you all today, it's about quick wins, right? So there's hopefully something in the webinar today that has sparked, oh, I could do that. Maybe it is setting 3 to 5 priorities. Maybe it is getting really clear as to what piece of fundraising we need to dig into. Maybe it's working with your staff, right? So the idea is you're taking one step forward in the December chaos, to move you forward, and not being worried about, well, is this the way someone else would have done it? Or, is this perfect? No, it's not, right? Imperfect. And I would also be looking at the low hanging fruit, right? So the low lift moves that can start, right, and get you out of inertia, and being able to move this particular project or program or initiative that you have to get done in December forward. When I'm thinking about what you don't need to know, you do not need all the data or full clarity to get moving on the thing that you've got to get done in December, right? Um, there's a phrase, and I love it. I put it here: imperfect beginnings still lead to meaningful progress. So get going already. Because if you don't get going, that's the thing that's noticed, right? That's the thing that will come back and bite you during the performance review or when you're sitting with the board and in a board report, right? The inaction is the thing that always kills us. Better to act and be able to pivot than not act at all. Um, this time of year, right, we want to be able to engage the board. So lots of what I talked about, it's like, oh, this starts to feel really heavy. It's all on me. I've got to finish the year and it's just me doing this. No, no. Remember the board overall is who's responsible for your organization, right? They set the strategic direction, they manage risk, they serve as a fiduciary. They are there to make sure there's financial controls. And if you're the executive director, they support you. Engage them. Most boards want to be a part of the solution. They want to help. They just don't know where you need the help or how to do it. So your job, right, to be communicative and help them understand what are the priorities this year and how can they plug in to help finish the year strong. So, admittedly, again, guilty as charged as a former executive director, we don't make it easy to plug the board in, right? And when I think back to exit interviews that have helped board directors that I've worked with, these are the things that really helped kind of with a light bulb on their head to say, oh, I get it now, right? So, especially with regard to fundraising or finances, dashboards, right? Most boards, they look at a profit and loss statement and it's an immediate snooze fest, right? But if we're able to put things in infographics or visuals that show metrics, all of a sudden it's like, oh, I get it, right? Like that makes a lot more sense. Same thing with fundraising. So having a dashboard that helps to distill the complex into the simple, super important. Having calendars, right? No one can get to meetings if we're scheduling things haphazardly. No one's going to come to the strategic planning session. No one's going to the board retreat. Heck, half the folks will miss a board meeting if we're just scheduling willy-nilly, right? So having calendars. Same thing goes with staff and making sure there's communication templates, right? We know that board directors are supposed to be ambassadors for our organization, and it's our job to provide them with the tools, whether that's email templates or graphics or content. They want to share the story. We've got to provide them with what that story is and an easy way for them to share with others. I always recommend, different types of templates, right? So there's a ton, right? BoardSource has a bunch, unabashed plug for those resources. The National Council of Nonprofits has a ton as well. I would reach out to your local state nonprofit association, but there are plug and play prompts, there are ready to use outlines, there are brand templates that you can use. And there's no reason for you to have to create these on your own. There's lots out there already when you're starting to think of what tools could I use for my board in order for them to help me do this work and finish our year strong. So I've already told you, maybe, this afternoon you're making your quick priority list. Maybe tomorrow you're doing a SWOT. Maybe into next week, right? You're actually sitting down to be thinking about 60 minutes, right? That's all I'm asking on it, maybe next Tuesday. Something that I would call your 60-minute planning sprint. So you're devoting 60 minutes to thinking about what are the most important things that I can do this year and getting ready to set 2026 goals, right? I would make yourself a list of really important questions to ask. And heads up, I've got a template that I'll send you after the webinar is done that would help you answer some of these, questions or thoughts for you as you're finishing this year and planning next. And then making sure that you're actually capturing your key takeaways and commitments, right? I have found if you block a 60-minute chunk, you can be really mindful about purpose, right? Making sure you're answering questions that are going to really help set the stage for finishing strong and planning. And then you come away with actionables for yourself. So your job is to define what a strong finish looks like for you. This isn't about comparing to another peer that's in the same space. This isn't about comparing to a nonprofit across town. It's in order for me to be successful in December, what's the fundraising goal? right? And it's got to be a number or a percentage. What's the program impact? What am I going to do with regard to board engagement? And what am I going to do with regard to my team well-being? Each of you might have a different metrics in those particular goals, but I would encourage you to set a goal for each of those. And when you're really thinking about year end, I want you to picture right now, you're sitting with yourself on December 31st, and I want you to think about what would make you proud, what would make your team proud, right? We will have done these things, and that will have allowed our organization to do what, right? Each of you will be different, right? It might be it might be monetary in terms of money in. Maybe it's cutting the budget. Maybe it's program delivery. Maybe it's sunsetting a program. Maybe it's we've done some things to really boost team morale. Maybe we've done some things for the board, right? Each of you will have different pieces. Again, I mentioned earlier, we're always really good about thinking about, oh, we could have done this, or we should have done this, or, well, we would have done this if. Well, I want you to think about right now, when I am 29 days from now, what will have made us proud? And the last couple pieces I'd share with you today. In order for us to continue to do this work, we have this habit of hustling, right? And I would absolutely let you know that it's an important piece, but I'm more interested in you being sustainable. And so hustle, right, oftentimes leads to burnout. I want you to think instead about how can we set up some sustainable business practices? And that usually involves pace, protecting your team and prioritizing your well-being. If we take care of that, right, and we can start to build new habits in those, new habits take 21 days, right? We have 29. That is going to allow you to set up success for this year and into 2026. So to wrap this up, right, to allow you to get out and actually start doing the things, I'm hoping that you've got tools to create your own individual roadmap for finishing this year strong and setting the stage up for 2026. And my overarching remarks would be by taking a strategic and thoughtful approach to whatever your year-end plan needs to be. You can optimize what your fundraising goals are, you can support your team, and you can start laying groundwork for long-term sustainability for your organization. And a reminder, right? Like hustle is sexy, but hustle is not sustainable. Your job is to pace yourself and your team to achieve some true success. Now, I would be a fool if I didn't offer you some additional tools as you're thinking about what's next and how you're going to finish strong this year. You are absolutely welcome to reach out to me with additional questions. You'll be receiving this particular recording and additional tools at 10 o'clock tomorrow. And you are always welcome to book a complimentary, free of charge call, right? It's confidential on a Monday afternoon for nonprofit therapy. I'm so appreciative of the work you do in this sector. Wishing you a strong finish to 2025 and happy holidays to you. Take care.